Hi, everyone. So, today I thought I'd continue my Explained Correctly series by talking about the ISFP. So, the ISFP, the nurturer. Now, when it comes to talking about the introverted types, I'm going to be breaking with the tradition of essentially talking about types where what makes one a J or a P is whichever rational cognitive function is extroverted or not in the top two. I think that is mental gymnastics, and I completely disagree with it. I think instead, when we talk about an ISFP, instead of talking about the FI leading type, I think instead we should talk about the SI leading type. That is a consistent way of talking about it. If you watch my J versus P video, then you'll see my reasoning for doing so. But I think that the true ISFP leads with introverted sensing, with extroverted feeling in the auxiliary function. So when we talk about SI and FE together in the ego block, which is the part which the type brings to the world, as it were, the part which is strong but also valued, what we get is essentially a focus on things being calm, things being balanced and harmonious, things feeling good, things being nice and pleasant. And the idea here is that you have the sensation and the feeling going together. There's a socio-emotional, socio-physical, socio-emotional aspect of this type, that their environment, but both emotional and physical, is balanced and harmonized in a nice, pleasant way, with both positive moods, positive feeling, and also positive physical experience. So, what we have first of all is the dominant function for the ISFP. That's going to be introverted sensation, as I've said. So, this is about bringing sensation into balance and harmony. So, ISFPs are very much types which do things first and foremost because it's comfortable to do so. They are a type which is very much about avoiding discomfort. They don't like things being stressful, rushed, fast paced, aggressive, anything like that. They will be the ones protesting and making sure that things are brought back into a calm and harmony. They are the creators of peace. They are the ones who smooth over the rough edges of life, you could say. And support and helping them with this is their strong eye for detail, knowing when things are out of place, when things aren't quite right, and how to put things back together again in a way that is harmonious and pleasant to experience, both for themselves and for others in their immediate vicinity. um, ISFPs are very attentive and aware of when people are feeling a little bit off and when things are a little bit out of kilter, and how to bring things back to that golden mean of balance, which is a very key thing for ISFPs, which is why they're known for being these sorts of aesthetes, people who like surround themselves with beauty, who like to create environments of that perfect harmony and equilibrium of their sensory experience. Now, supporting the introverted sensation is the extroverted feeling. ISFPs are very aware and adaptive to the mood and the emotions around them. These aren't types who are likely to be the center of attention, but they are very much types who are likely to blend in to their social surroundings, to find the right way of expressing how they feel, that allows them to easily blend in, allows them to remove tension from a social atmosphere, allows them to get on with all sorts of different kinds of people because they tend to be quite warm and friendly. They're happy to bring their sense of humor to the fore. They tend to be just cheerful, nice, friendly people. No one tends to dislike ISFPs because they come across well to others. They're good at managing and fitting in with their emotions. It's not, again, to stand out, it's not to manage the room around them. It's more of a subtle fitting in approach, subtly changing the mood to make things more calm, more relaxed, more enjoyable around them. And yes, they can be quite positively expressive. Um, they can certainly be a type who knows how to, when around more emotionally expressive individuals able to sort of reflect the right sort of emotions back at them, as it were, to essentially be liked by all. So that's the ego block. Now we turn to the super ego block for ISFPs. So ISFPs, where they are weak and what they do not value is in the realm of the long-term, more strategic way of looking at things. How are things going to be developing over the long run in sort of a factual, how will it work out kind of way? This is tend to be an area that's quite stressful for an ISFP to have to think about. Now, the first of all, we have the role function. And for ISFPs, their role function is introverted intuition. So it's not really natural for an ISFP to detach from the day to day. These are types who are very much about being and savoring and enjoying that present moment. So to have to detach from the day to day, to be removed from their immediate experiences, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel nice for them to do so. But they can do it. They can think forwards. They can wonder where things are going in the long run. Often it's because of some sort of socially created reason. ISFPs, again, tend to be very good at blending in. They don't tend to ruffle the feathers of people around them. So they may think that, okay, we need to be looking ahead. We need to be seeing problems in the long run. And ISFP may find themselves worrying about what may be coming along the future and thinking, okay, where could things later down the line become uncomfortable, become unpleasant? It's very important for an ISFP to sort of look after their day to day to keep things nice. So the fact that the future could be unpleasant is going to be alarming to them to some degree. Now, this means that they can, yes, think ahead if needed, but that's not ideal for them to be thinking in sort of linear, often quite a negative future kind of way. Um, what then doesn't really help them when utilizing introverted intuition is their extroverted thinking. You see, ISFPs, they can think ahead more in terms of the social ramifications. What may people think? How may people react to them? They are likely to think ahead in that sort of way when they are thinking in the long term. But when it comes to the extroverted thinking, this is where this is a blind spot. Suddenly, the ISFP is quite unable to utilize their introverted intuition in a way that is blocked with extroverted thinking. How will things work out practically over the long run? This is where an ISFP doesn't know what to do. And often they can find that large amounts of factual information, especially when detached from their present in the moment experiences, can be very hard for them to mentally digest. They can find there's too much information. They find their brain can sort of shut down with too many facts that could be read in books and that sort of thing. And they are much likely to prefer gradually digesting and absorbing things and trying it out in the moment in their day-to-day experiences. So often you'll find that an ISFP may disagree with things which they may find in books and may say how things ought to work in the long run. They haven't experienced it that way. It doesn't really make sense to them, essentially. And so they may be quite slow to adopt and improve how things are working around them, utilizing extroverted thinking. They are types that want to keep things nice, to find their comfort zones of being and understanding. So this idea they have to suddenly relentlessly improve how things work, how things are operating, that's going to be quite disconcerting to an ISFP. These aren't the ones who are going to be suddenly changing up all their practices just to meet a target. They are going to be wanting to go at their own natural pace in life, keeping things pleasant, keeping things chilled, not trying to be at optimum efficiency, and having to quickly learn and revise how they understand something in order to be more efficient and more effective in the long run. That's not going to be an easy sell to an ISFP. So yeah. Now, when we get to the super id block, this is where we get to what is still quite weak in ISFP, but what they kind of like. They actually respond very well to this combination. This is the combination rather than being about strategic planning and how things ought to be done more effectively over time. This is about theory. This is about how things can fit together and make sense in a way that helps to bring the world around them to life in a more interesting and unexpected and sometimes surprising way. Now, this is the thing. When we were talking about the ISFP as being sort of worried about how the future will turn out, they can sometimes get this idea of things turning out in a negative way. What can free them from this idea of this being the only way that they're sort of tied into or locked into? What frees them is a consideration of alternative perspectives, alternative ideas, new ways of looking at things. Now, for an ISFP, they're not very good at this. This is quite a very weak area for them. They're very much grounded in their day-to-day experiences. It's be quite difficult for them to think outside of those experiences, see things from a completely new lens, a completely different point of view. That's difficult. But they greatly appreciate those who can turn things on its head, who can suggest new things they'd never thought about ever before. They like to have their understanding of the world broadened with new ideas and new perspectives. They just don't know how to do that themselves. They don't know how to navigate that ambiguity and conceptual complexity without locking in on one likely outcome that is going to be going forwards. To have all the different possibilities at their fingertips is a deeply rewarding experience, but something they will feel much more comfortable being guided through by someone who is more natural at exploring all these different kinds of possibilities and tangents. But yes, an ISFP is a type that is looking forward to being surprised and finding something new to add to their zone of familiarity. They don't like the facts. They don't like having huge amounts of quite boring and sort of quite pedantic factual information heaped upon them. But they do like to be shown something new and interesting. It's a key and quite subtle difference there. Now, what they benefit from greatly as well is introverted thinking. This is about structuring, making sense of things, creating models to explain how everything fits together. And this an ISFP will prefer to do more themselves, whereas they want an extroverted, intuitive type to show them the new possibilities outside of their familiarity. When it comes to introverted thinking, they will be wanting to create those conceptual models to make sense of things for themselves, to find out how things fit together in a way which makes sense to them. And that's very important. Things making sense to them rather than being shown in some sort of study they've never seen or ever heard of to work, supposedly. ISFPs get quite suspicious when people say things. It is known that this works. This is how it will improve how things function. And ISFP will be more inclined to say, well, in my experiences, I found this works perfectly fine. So they can be quite stubborn in their thinking, and they may come up with certain models, certain frameworks through which they may understand things almost entirely. And they may perhaps get quite zealous to some degree in pushing that sense of how things are right, how things are meant to fit together. This is how this is meant to be done. This is how things fit together. That is not the way. This is the way. They may get quite pushy on this as being the particular way that fits together, that makes sense for them based on what they have come to know and understand. The idea is when you have all that factual complexity, it is far easier for an ISFP to really put that into some sort of coherent model or coherent framework. That simplifies it down, makes it easier to understand, easier to make sense of. And that is how an ISFP is able to develop that intellectual confidence. And once they have that, you find that ISFPs often can become experts in particular niche areas of practice. They like to have their structure, like to have their way of seeing it and understanding how it works. And then they may become a bit protective over this as well. Because the idea for an ISFP is that they hate to be put in the situation, especially under pressure, where they may come across as stupid to others. They don't like being required to come up with all the facts in front of them and present that on the fly. They may need to prepare for that sort of environment. But where things are logically entailed from other founding principles, that simplifies the data to the point where they can very easily grasp that and utilize that and know, based on the structure, based on the framework, what the next decision ought to be in a way that makes sense. Okay, so now we turn finally to the id block. So this is an area of strength again for an ISFP, not weakness, but it's not valued. It is something which is kept quite private for the ISFP. It's not something which they tend to wave around or push onto their environment. So two parts to this. Again, we have, first of all, the ignoring function. So you think of SC and FI together. This is this sort of more political way of thinking. Who can I trust? Who can how can I actually build allies to protect me and my independence from others? And how can I be aware of bad character? Those sorts of things, SC and FI together. So when it comes to an ISFP, what they ignore very much is the extroverted sensation. ISFPs are capable of being quite assertive people, if need be, in those rare occasions where introverted sensation needs them to be more assertive. But for the large majority of the time, ISFPs are gentle souls. They are types that avoid conflict if they can avoid it. They try to keep things peaceful, calm, nice, want everyone around them to be enjoying themselves as well and just balanced and peaceful. They get uncomfortable if other people get pushy and start impacting on the environment in an overly assertive way. So, what you'll find with an ISFP, though, is when they are made to be uncomfortable enough, when the only way for them to bring things back into comfort, back into balance and harmony, is for them to actually get assertive. That's when they'll get assertive. That's where you'll see that flash of sudden temper for an ISFP. And that can be remarkably more assertive than you would have expected from them. But it is there. They have that capacity. They are not pushovers. This is the thing of ISFPs. They can actually be quite tough people. And they certainly don't like people trying to rush them. They will quite assertively insist of keeping things at the pace that is comfortable for them. You do not rush an ISFP. They will go at the pace they want to go at because sensation for them is stubborn. So for them, extrovert sensation bounces off them. They have no interest in responding to it unless they are uncomfortable. Then they'll sort it out, and then they'll go back to it being peaceful and nice and pleasant once again. So yes. Now, what you see a lot more of though for an ISFP is their introverted feeling. Now, ISFPs, they don't like to show or market their personal judgment of people and situations. Nevertheless, they are very aware of what they like and what they dislike. Whether they trust you or they don't trust you, they know this. They can read character very quickly in an individual. However, they don't stick to that personal assessment at the expense of the social environment around them. For them, the emotional space is what is most important rather than the personal attitudes. So an ISFP in an environment will put aside personal considerations to keep things nice, to keep things pleasant. They are not party poopers, ISFP. The only time an ISFP might be a party pooper is when they're tired and then they want to go to bed and they want to keep things relaxing because for them, their comfort comes first and foremost, even over the social environment. But when it comes to introverted feeling, no, they'll keep things pleasant, they'll keep things happy, even if they don't particularly like the person. They will put that to one side because extroverted feeling is what's actually valued. Nevertheless, they know how to form close one-to-one relationships with others. They're very good at setting the intimacy that they want with each individual around them. And by forming these one-to-one connections with an attention to the group atmosphere, they're very good at forming these clusters and circles of friends. They could have a number of different circles, and each one is based on different individuals they like and actually have brought together in a certain natural club or community for regular social activities. So they balance both kinds of feeling very well, very effectively. which is why they make such good close friends of people. It's why they rarely fall out with people. They know how to manage both the one-to-one relationship and also the social moods that they're coming across well, with that diplomatic understanding. But yes, these types are more about the enjoyment of the experience rather than preserving their one-to-one attitudes absolutely at the expense of the social environment around them. So that's all I have to say about the ISFP. If you want to learn any more, if you want to take my course to understand this type in more depth alongside all the other type, please email worldsocionics@hotmail.com. Send me an email. If the email is entitled course, then I'll be able to send you more information on my course, and you can find out as much as you want about socionics, all the information in my head, ready for you to watch and read and learn. So thank you everyone for tuning in. All the best.